This is gonna hurt. You can leave that in.
How did some slip of a girly boy from communist East Berlin become the internationally ignored song stylist barely standing before you?
It's a bonus episode, so I don't need to introduce it, do I?
Nope, they know who we are.
You know who we are.
You know who we are. We watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch because we've been going around in a circle where we like watch a movie that's been like very meaningful to us. And last time I dodged that. I got out of it. And so in recompense, what I decided to do was perfectly psychologically obliterate not only myself but also my two
Alice
co-hosts.
has been charging her fucking attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cards on the table, listeners. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is like a cult trans classic. Despite that, I had never seen it before. Alice recommended it. And I said this in the group chat, and I don't think I've ever been so moved by a piece of film in all my life. This was so fucking incredible, and there are probably going to be parts of this episode that get quite emotional. There might be, because like there's certain bits of this film that I don't think I can talk about without either revealing a lot of personal shit about my life or just like crying. So it's like
100%.
Genuine alert to you listeners. This episode will be like a fun and entertaining episode of Kill James Bond, but it is also likely that you will have to hear us be very sad. And I know that you don't want that because we're friends in real life. That's why you're here on the Patreon. I know that you're our real friend and you really care about us for real, and we know you. We're not just strangers to you. That's why you give us your money. So it might be a little bit heavy going.
It might be. This might be the Kill James Bond therapy hour.
Or 2 or 3 hours, because there's a lot to say.
Yes, there is. I think it's best if we just dive straight into it. We get our opening shot, in fact, is of a woman in a huge blonde wig throwing a parasol behind her over her shoulder without looking and entering into the service door of a chain seafood restaurant called Bilgewater's.
Yep.
Which already tells you a lot of what you need to know. And then we get the first song, because this is a musical. It's based on a stage musical. It's an adaptation. And so this woman opens a pair of big sort of like wings that look like the Berlin Wall, which have graffitied on them, "Yankee Go Home With Me," which is one of my favorite jokes in, I would say, any musical. And as an incidental thing, when this is now sometimes staged differently, and I've seen a production of this where instead of "Yankee Go Home With Me," they have "gender is a construct" in big pink letters, and I'm like,
it's not funny.
Okay, what you've done there is you've taken away a perfectly good and like character developing joke and replaced it with, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
This is the theme of the movie. Check this out. There you go.
So this is our protagonist Hedwig, who I guess so immediately we have to add a bunch of asterisks here because
yes.
Alice describes Hedwig as a woman, which I think is accurate. My interpretation of this film is that Hedwig is a trans woman. That is kind of slightly complicated because
let's at the moment say drag queen, right? Another very loaded, very emotional term.
I don't know,
and probably it's also.
I don't think she is.
This is the way that a lot of the actors and the producers describe Hedwig. And the thing is, we're going to get into this. I'm glad that Abby and I are of one mind on this. I believe that that's wrong, and I think that they, in large part, made a better movie than they meant to. But so Hedwig is a singer, right?
She's definitely a singer.
Yes, that unquestionable.
She has a band, the Angry Inch, who are a collection of miscellaneous Eastern Europeans, and her husband Yitzhak, who we'll talk about later.
God, I have some thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Oh, yeah.
And they are playing in this shitty, sort of like chain seafood restaurant, Bilgewater's. the reaction shots of like the baffled, disgusted crowd are some of my favorite parts of this movie.
Really good.
It's just people who are in there to like eat their lunch or eat their dinner and are confronted
This like
with
very
this.
gender performance because she sings the first song of the film, which is called "Tear Me Down," in which she they're all bangers. In which she sort of adopts the persona of the Berlin Wall as kind of like a dividing line between gender and invites the audience to try and tear her down.
Yes, and it's something that I enjoy about this movie and about a lot of musicals in general is that, notwithstanding gender as a construct, Wings, they do have a way of getting out front with, this is what the movie's deal is.
Yes.
And so this is what the movie's deal is Hedwig is from communist East Berlin, and she is like the Berlin Wall in that she is a divide between East and West, freedom and slavery,
male and female,
man and woman,
and it's also a target for like destruction.
Yeah.
Yes, incidentally, and this is going to get into what I think the viewpoint of this movie is. The joke line after male and female is top and bottom. But yes, so Hedwig has come to the United States to perform, to find a new life, but she is this. Well, she says there's not much difference between a bridge and a wall, right? She's something in between genders.
Mm-hmm.
The song rocks. The crowd are not awed, as they should be. And there's this first little moment when Yitzhak is like singing, he gets a bit too into it, and Hedwig pulls his mic cable.
Yes.
And this Hedwig is not a good person. This is an interesting movie about a person who is like...
It's really very interesting that they make that choice, that she is not a kind of pure victim. She is a little bit monstrous on occasion.
Yes. And so we cut to after the show. Yitzhak and Hedwig are in the room. Hedwig has come back drunk. The room is like comically full of blonde wigs. Mm-hmm. And we see Yitzhak kind of like look at some of them covetously.
Interestingly, yeah. She like, you know what? This is a difficult one for me. I'm going to use he, him the entire way through for Yitzhak just to make things easier.
I think that is what I think the character is meant to be.
The character is a cis man, right? That's my understanding. His character is a cis man. He is played by a woman in this, and he has some backstory that is in the stage show, but isn't in this movie. But I'll get to that as it comes up. But he, in fact, is a drag queen. But
unambiguously a drag queen as we would understand a drag queen today.
That's right.
I think the backstory in the musical is that Hedwig has forbidden him from performing in drag again.
That's right, because Hedwig, being Hedwig, has no interest in someone else doing drag right next to her. Doesn't want to like get upstaged.
As we see, she is like quite controlling.
So, again, like if we interpret Hedwig as being a trans woman, then it would make sense that she would not want to be seen next to a drag queen. She wouldn't want people to think that she's one. But we'll get into this.
We get another great bit of the trans experience here, which is she comes in and she's had this moment, a moment which I think will be doubly familiar to any trans woman who has ever performed anything ever, where she's like this sort of mean-looking older woman. She came up to me after the show. I didn't have anything in my hands. I was going to go for the eyes. And then she comes at me from both sides and she gives me a fucking hug. And Hedwig's sort of like bafflement and also sort of exhaustion there, that nails two things that cis people in general are not really supposed to know about, which is both the sort of hypervigilance and also the sort of crossing the street to avoid overly supportive liberals kind of thing. And where Hedwig comes down on this is, well, I got some drinks out of it, so it's all good. And yeah, maybe that's the best you can do sometimes. It rings very true. This movie has a lot of insights into the trans feminine soul, at least I would say.
And then they have a moment, her and her husband, where they kiss a little bit. They're interrupted by something on the TV, which is somebody else performing the song that we have just heard Hedwig sing.
Yes, and it's a boy, Michael Pitt.
We'll get to this.
It's a character in the movie Hedwig, so it's not that fucking easy. But
the egg,
but
relative to Hedwig,
this character is portrayed ostensibly as a boy, which I believe there may be some debate about that will occur later on. But for now, it's imperative that you as the audience know that this character is presented
as
a boy.
A boy. This is like a big singer superstar called Tommy Gnosis.
Tommy Gnosis.
All right, that's enough of that. The rest of this episode will remain on the Patreon, and we won't be unlocking it because it's too real. So there is only one way to listen to the rest of this, and that is to go to patreon.com/KillJamesBond and sign up for just £5 a month for the entire backlog.